What's going on, guys? It's your boy Anthony back with another edition of the Fourth Man Podcast. And it's been a minute. It's been since April 4th, to be exact, since we've had an episode. It's been a challenging offseason, as I'm sure we're all aware. There hasn't been a ton of updates, but I think there's some reasons and logic behind that, maybe just some behind the scene things. But really excited to be back. We've got a great episode for you. If you've read the title of this, you understand that there's actually going to be an interview on the back end, which has been part of the challenge and part of the reason I haven't had an episode in a couple of months, I guess, now at this point. But we do have an interview today. Alongside that, we have a ton of updates to share with you from the Big Three side. We hit the draft that went on, have an update on the schedule. The week one matchups are out. So we're going to discuss all of that on the first half of this episode. And then on the back half, we're going to have an interview with one of the newest members in the Big Three, Javier Carter. But before we get into all that, as always, make sure you guys are following on all socials. Really, that's where a lot of the information is being passed along. I'm updating everybody so whether it's Instagram or Twitter, make sure you're following at Fourth Man Pod. Again, everything from a visual standpoint. If you want to see all the episodes, want to see players' reactions, not super crazy or anything, but if you're more of a visual person, you like YouTube better, make sure you're following along and subscribing at youtube.com/fourthmanpod or the Fourth Man Podcast on YouTube. And as always, a big shout out and a big thank you to Believe Network, who makes a lot of this happen, on the production side. And, one of the biggest reasons that we're able to have the show and continue to discuss with the love we have for the Big Three. So first off, it's June 14th today as I'm recording this. That means we have about 11 days, 2 Sundays to go, 2 Sundays, including the day of, to go before the start of season 6, back on tour. And I'm just super stoked for it. I'm excited. I'm really getting into this, feeling the energy a little bit more. There's been a lot of good things happening, whether the players are ramping up. We've seen a lot of good Drew League performances lately. Actually, a couple from Javier's teammates, Dominique Johnson and Frank Nitti. They just had some stellar performances in the Drew, so big shouts out to them. Frank also had a new shoe release, his own player exclusive shoe with Jordan. That's pretty dope. Big shout out to Frank, always doing big things and really, just creating his own path, his own journey, which is always cool to see. A lot of players getting back from overseas. A lot of other players are hooping in the Drew, doing their thing, or hooping in these other leagues, whether it's in Texas. We've seen Gerald Green and the NEPL League. I don't know if that's how you say it, but that's the acronym for it. And they have the Swin City League in Dallas. So a bunch of different leagues going on as those guys are preparing for what should be one of the more leveled playing field seasons that we've had in recent history, I think. I think this is about as leveled as it gets. But before we get into the interview with Javier, let's talk a little bit and catch up. I mean, it's been a minute. And by the way, this is supposed to be yellow. This is supposed to be for Killer 3's and Javier, and I cannot get this thing to the lighting to be right. It's looking a little orange. Am I right? Maybe peach? It's yellow, okay? It's yellow. Just know this is a Killer 3's episode, essentially, because I've already talked about Frank and Dominique, and I got Javier on the back end. So it's yellow. We're trying to represent, but we're not doing a great job. But anyways, let's catch up. It's been a minute. Let's first go into the draft. Kind of some weird circumstances there, right? I mean, I think a lot of you who are listening to this probably got a chance to see the mock draft that I put up pretty much the day before, I think it was the day of the actual draft. I didn't have any information, just like a lot of you, on who the available players were going to be, what the draft order was, until right before everything went down. I knew that the combine had been changed. Ultimately, that actually got canceled at the last minute, so nobody, unfortunately, got to showcase their skills to any of these captains, which makes everything, I know there's some politics involved in this, but at this point, it kind of is more of a political thing because there was no combine, unfortunately. But that to be said, I think people have been trying to showcase themselves in leagues that they play in, and everything's about networking at the end of the day. So it was unfortunate there was no combine, but didn't know that the combine was canceled until I think the day before or the day of. And then I didn't even know who the players were right up to there, but a couple anonymous sources were able to come through for me, and I was able to make that mock draft last minute. And then we got the draft, and I didn't even think it was going to be broadcasted. In fact, what I really thought is that it was going to be one of those things where they're just kind of, like in fantasy, where they do like the the 24-hour mock draft. You have like 24 hours to make a selection. I thought it was going to be kind of a condensed version of that, where like they were going to just be picking all day. But Ice Cube randomly comes out and says, "Hey, we're going to have a draft showing on Instagram Live, on Twitter, and it's going to be tonight at 9 p.m. or 6 p.m. PST, 9 p.m. Eastern." So shocker, I would have had a draft show or something for that. I was gearing up for it, but I didn't know anything about it. So, you know, my fault for not coming through on that. I had a couple players lined up for it, had the usual guys lined up for it, and just didn't know about it in time. But still, it was cool to see that we had a draft. It was a little wonky. I think they were trying to figure it out on their end from an Instagram and Twitter standpoint of like, do we simultaneously do this? Do we do like one pick on one side and one pick on the other? Then they had interviews with some of the players and captains. So it was just kind of all over the place. And just from my perspective, I think the biggest reason why they're doing some of the things the way they are, whether it's keeping some people in the dark, not having a ton of news up front, doing the draft show the way they did, I think this is a season where like they're having to cut costs a little bit. They're trying to properly spend their budget. You know, they've balled out for 5 seasons, and that's even coming off a year in 2020 when they didn't get to have a season, when they didn't get to make any revenue, you know? So I think this is a year where they're kind of cutting costs back as much as they can, but also too, trying to put costs and budget into the more exciting, entertaining parts about the Big Three, part of that being the tour, right? So I think they had a lot of money went into the different stadiums they rented out. And unfortunately, that's the way things went down. Nonetheless, a draft happened. 20 guys were selected. The draft order was pretty much, I mentioned this on the mock draft, but they were the same for the first and second round, which is pretty rare, but in a way, kind of cool the way they did it. I mean, it was inverse orders of the standings last year. So worst team got the first pick and best team got the last pick. Or I guess the third best team got the last pick, because Power and Trilogy, my goodness, the champs, you know, they ran their teams back. Power just made a small switch up to their co-captain, not a small switch up. It's a huge addition to their team and Akil Mitchell, but they just made a change at co-captain, so there was no need to draft anybody. They weren't going to let go of Glenn Rice Jr. or TJ Klein, which makes a lot of sense because of what they did last year. But I didn't want to go through the whole draft. I mean, I'll go through obviously the picks and everything. DeJuan Summers was the #1 pick. Makes a lot of sense. The reigning 4th man of the year. He was probably the most coveted player off the board. But even like some things within here, I mean, like I didn't know that Larry Sanders was going to be available. I didn't know he was going to be dropped as a co-captain. Or I'm sorry, I didn't know he was going to be dropped as a co-captain for Tri-State and then ultimately be back in the draft pool. As we now know, Deshaun Stevens is the new co-captain at Tri-State. The Larry Sanders was available. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense why he went early. I mean, it makes a lot of sense why Ryan Hollins went early too. I've said this time and time again, year after year, that big men are highly coveted in this in the draft pool, and a lot of that's because 1, there's not a ton of size. 2, you want versatility, but 3, you definitely want bigs that can protect the rim. They can rim run. They can go up for lobs, and I think Ryan Hollins has shown year in and year out, whether you like it or not, that he can do that. I mean, there was one game he was absolutely dominating. I want to say it was Bivouac, dominating them, just catching lobs from Jeremy and Gennaro Pargo. So it makes a lot of sense why Bivouac wanted to add him and, you know, add him to Gerald Green's squad. Larry Sanders, same thing. I think they, ISO Joe and the Pargo brothers liked the idea of what Ryan Hollins brought to the table last year. So they brought in Larry Sanders, who can maybe do a little bit more defensively, maybe a little bit more offensively, but definitely bringing that same lob threat that Ryan Hollins brought you last year. So it makes a lot of sense why they went with those picks. But we saw a lot of staples and Big Three experience go through early in the draft. We saw Quincy Miller, Darnell Jackson go to enemies and ghost ballers. I was trying to figure out a way to word that, but horrible setup for that. Quincy Miller went to enemies, so he gets to join his boy Isaiah Austin. And that was the only new addition that they made outside of bringing Jordan Crawford back, who wasn't there for the whole year, who they drafted in the 2nd round. And then Darnell Jackson, Dominique Johnson, both went back to their original teams in Ghost Ballers and Killer 3's. We also saw 4 new guys go in the 1st round. Yeah, we had Hollis Thompson, the 3's company, Devin Ebanks, the Tri-State, Giannis Tima to Aliens, and Jordan Adams to 3-Headed Monsters to round up the 1st round. Then in the 2nd round, we saw where as we usually do, more chances were taken on some of the newer guys within the league. Jalen Johnson went with the Ball Hogs. So Ball Hogs looking like a legitimate, playoff contender this year with the addition. They added a young big who can stretch the floor, who can play in the paint. A huge paint presence there. Damian Wilkins, I think he's the nephew of Dominique Wilkins, added the triplets. He's been in the draft pool, I think, last year and wasn't selected this year. He goes. Shannon Shorter's also new to the league. He's going to join Bivouac and Gerald Green and Garland Green and Corey Brewer in that squad. Chuck Garcia, new to the league as well. He's joining Ghost Ballers. He's looking like, I know there's a lot of hype around him, and I know that's probably because Ghost Ballers is probably the most active when it comes to social media, but he's looking like just from what I've seen, an early contender maybe for that Rookie of the Year spot. That's just what he brings. Like, he be able to stretch the floor, play in the paint. It looks like he can score all three levels. I'm kind of excited about what Chuck Garcia is going to bring to this Ghost Ballers team. I think he brings a lot of versatility as well. Eric Moreland then went for 3's company. It's very well known that he ended up opting out. He was thinking about playing on the fence, was selected, ultimately decided not to play. So they've actually filled his position. I just put this up recently on Instagram, which is why you should be following if you don't know yet. But Julian Wright will take his place, so he's going to return to the team, making Hollis Thompson the only new addition to 3's company. And then to round out the draft, we had Ray Nixon return to his old team. Javier Carter, who's our guest today, joining Killer 3's as their only new addition. Alonzo G joining Aliens as the only American-born player on that team. So that's gotten very European more than it was last year. Then Robert Dozier rounding out the entire draft, making it to where now 3's company has two new, or I said 3's companies, 3-Headed Monsters has two new players to round out the trio of Rashard Lewis, Kevin Murphy, and Reggie Evans. So pretty exciting draft. I think there was a lot of balance within here. I'm looking at this as like winners and losers mostly. I mean, there's a ton of good additions within here. I really like what Tri-State did, adding Deshaun Stevens as one of their co-captains, bringing in Devin Ebanks, who had a ton of success in the NBA, especially with the Lakers, and then bringing back Ray Nixon, who ended the season with a bang last year. I feel like Tri-State's a big winner in this one. I want to say the other big winner, just off rip here, I want to say it's Ball Hogs. You get DeJuan Summers, who I believe was the best player in this draft pool. I guess Ball Hogs thought the same, like he was going to be a good fit. And then I really like the youth they brought and the size they brought in Jalen Johnson. I know they have a ton of bigs right now. They have Jeff Ayers on that team. Jalen Johnson, DeJuan Summers is, he's a wing, but he's a big dude as well. But I think size is definitely what they need, because they have their two lead guards in Jody Meeks and Leandro Barbosa. And as long as Barbosa comes back really healthy, I think this is going to be a strong, legitimate team. And then Tri-State, like I said, with Ebanks and Nixon, adding Deshaun Stevens, I think it was a really strong offseason for a team that's been the number one seed 2 years ago, just missed the playoffs last year. I think they're set up for a really good run as well. Biggest losers, there really weren't too many losers. I would say 3's company. It's unfortunate that they drafted somebody and then the player ends up opting out. There's no fault of anyone's there. It's just the way things went. But it is unfortunate that when you select somebody, they ultimately end up not being, on your team. Still picking up Julian Wright, bringing him back to a team that was gelling at the end of last year, I think is still good news. But I would have to consider them a loser here. The other loser here, I don't know if there really is a loser. I don't know. It's tough for me to say. I guess I would say Bivouac, but I say that very hesitantly, only because I've never been crazy. And maybe this is about the disrespect that I'm bringing, but I've never been someone who's ever mocked Ryan Hollins to the team, mainly because I do think he is a great lob threat. I think he's someone that you can throw the ball up to the rim and he's going to be able to catch anything. But I think he has his limitations. So taking him third overall, I think you had to, because you didn't want to wait for him to go back to the first round. He was going to get selected somewhere, I think, as I should have expected, and what's happened time and time again. I think he was going to get selected before their next pick. But having to take him so early, I don't know if I'm crazy about that. I thought they were going to bring in John Jordan. Because John Jordan's played with Gerald Green right now. They end up bringing Shannon Shorter. So it's more of just me not really knowing what Shannon Shorter brings to the table. It looks like he's had a really good career overseas. So I'm really excited for them to prove me wrong. Both those like so-called losers. But overall, I thought everyone had a pretty decent draft. Everyone had a really good offseason, I think. I think the most intriguing team, again, is going to be a team like Aliens and then also Three-Headed Monsters. Aliens, because so their new co-captain, as we know from the last episode, Carlos Lasmanis is opting to play with and received a huge opportunity to play with a team in China. So he's going to be in China this year, not playing in the Big Three. So as his replacement, they brought, and I hope I'm not butchering this too bad, but Kostya Mushidi, who's a German guy. He's a young player. I've seen him play a lot of 5-on-5. He's played some 3-on-3 apparently. I'm not exactly sure what he brings to the table. It looks like he can shoot really well. Like he looks like a really strong shooter. Looks like he can get to the cup. Not really sure what he's going to bring to the table. But then you include Giannis Tima in there, who another European-born player. And then you bring in a Big Three vet like Alonzo G. I'm not really sure what to expect. I'm not really sure who fills the role of necessarily like Deshaun Stevens. Like I think they have a great big in Ivosev. I think he showcased that, especially at the end of last year. He can kind of do it all from a facilitator to a scorer, rebounder, but he doesn't bring the same athleticism I think that Deshaun has, which I think they'll miss. And defensively, I wonder what that means too. Like Mushidi is like, I think he like from what I've seen, it looks very athletic, but he's not as big as Deshaun. I think he's a lanky guy, but he's not as big. So I mean, maybe he can bring that same high flying presence, catch balls from Deshaun, be a better wing defender, maybe, which is what they want more of. But I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to get. And then with Three-Headed Monsters, I mean, it's not that I find them like super intriguing. Like, you know what you're going to get. Like, I'm excited that they get Reggie Evans back. You know what you're going to get from the Big Three MVP, Rashard Lewis, Kevin Murphy, and then former MVP, first MVP ever, and Rashard Lewis. But you had two new additions to your team. I think Jordan Adams and Kevin Murphy, like that sounds like a pretty dominant backcourt, just what I've seen from Jordan Adams. And then based off what I've heard about Rob Dozier is that he's kind of Reggie Evans-esque, except he can pop out a little bit more. So, I mean, like, I'm pretty stoked to see what both those teams bring, if it's really good plays or maybe not what they expected. But I'm intrigued by both those teams, definitely caught my interest. Definitely some games I'll be like tapping into and thinking about a little bit more. But ultimately, that's how the draft went. Regardless of how smooth the actual visual aspect was, guys were alerted that they were drafted and they're going to be on some teams. And I'm excited that these teams are rounded out. That's always my favorite part too. And I don't know. I'm excited for June 25th in Chicago. It's going to be a fun time. They also released the week 1 matchups. And excuse me, I'm on a different computer trying to look at some of this stuff. Actually, before we get into week 1 matchups, let me update everybody on, if you haven't heard already, I think some people have heard because they bought tickets to this event and then ultimately ended up getting canceled. But week 3 was supposed to be in New York at the Arthur Ashe Tennis Center. It was supposed to be outside. Ultimately, they canceled that event, and now they're still going to be playing in New York, but it's going to be at the Barclays Center, which is like, I talk about like a plan B, second option. Like, you get to play at the Barclays, like that's insane. Like that's dope. I don't want to say it's cooler than Arthur Ashe because like the idea of playing outside sounds really dope and just like something like a different experience for a league that's only trying to do something different year in and year out. But playing at the Barclays Center, like, yes, sir, like sign me up. Like, I'm still going to do that too. The reason I think they ended up canceling that, and this is just my opinion, my perspective, but I was actually talking to my wife about this and she brought up some good points as well, is that first off, again, when we're talking about a league that is trying to save money, trying to make sure everything goes well, trying to have a really successful season, you can't afford the risk of the weather factor and what comes into play there. Like, imagine if this event ends up being on a day when rain comes into play. Like, they're obviously going to have to cancel the event. You don't know how, it's going to happen. You're already in a short season. So from a rescheduling purpose, it's going to be really tough, especially if these games are usually going to be on Sundays. So you don't want to risk this event being canceled. Add in the fact that there was just a wildfire in New York and Canada and the uncertainty that that's bringing on every day. I mean, the sky was literally orange the day after because of everything that's happened, up north over there. I don't think they wanted to risk there being any issues with this going down. We're trying to have the most successful season year in and year out. We're trying to make sure that this tour life gets back on the right foot, picks up where season 3 left off. You don't want to take any risks there. I think that's a lot of what everything had to do with it. Also, too, adding the fact that I was talking about budget saving, imagine not only having this venue at Arthur Ashe, but then having to tailor it to and recreate this into a basketball arena when it's normally fitted and configured for tennis, right? So that's going to probably cost you a little extra money as well. I think all those factors came into play. Maybe the people at the top think and say, hey, like, let's not even like take these risks. Like, I don't think the return on investment is going to be there. Let's do this a little bit differently. Let's have a more solidified event at a great venue still. And let's just have a good time there. So Barclays Center is going to be for week 3. That's my idea of why they're doing this. And hey, again, plan B being the Barclays Center, I'm cool with it. Like, sign me up. Last thing I want to talk about, and then we'll get to our interview. You guys can hear me shut up, and we can actually hear from someone who's playing in the league, someone new in the league, and Javier Carter. Just want to get into these week 1 matchups real quick. Got Trilogy and Enemies. Oh, by the way, we're going to get 6 games in one day every time. So, like, I've already, like, blocked off, like, as many Sundays as I can for about, I guess, 6 hours. Like, I get to watch basketball for 6 hours. And if you go to these events, I don't know how much tickets are. They're not crazy expensive when I went. But if you go to, and for you owner holders, like, you're not even paying anything. You own the team or whatever. You own a portion of the team. But if you are just buying a ticket, just want to go, if the league is stopping in your neighborhood, you're getting 6 games for the price of 1 ticket, and you're probably going to get some kind of performance from somebody. Is my hope, if at the very least from Ice Cube. So, you know, talk about a deal right there. I talk about this every year, but the deal doesn't get any sweeter than that. But 6 games in one day. We got Trilogy Enemies, Triplets Bivouac, Power 3-Headed Monsters, Aliens Ball Hogs, Ghost Ballers, and 3's Company, Killer 3's and Tri-State. Couple games that stand out to me. One, I think Trilogy and Enemies is a really interesting one. I feel like I always try to be very optimistic about Enemies. I really think that Enemies has a better shot this year. They had a solid team last year. Elijah Stewart got an opportunity, had to step away from the team for a little bit. Then they added some new pieces to the team. There was kind of like guys in and out. And Elijah left at a time when they were just coming off a big win. Like, they had some momentum rolling. So I think this year they add in Quincy, who was a big factor, a big reason why 3-Headed Monsters made the playoffs once again last year. He had a really solid season in his first year. Bring back the guys that you already had, and then, you know, have Jordan Crawford for a full year this time rather than maybe just a couple games. Like, I like what they're doing. They're not a team that plays like super big anyways, but adding Quincy, who can not only get a bucket at any time, but he's also lanky and tall dude as well. Like, he's like 6'10", 6'11". Like, yeah, I think they got a good solid team. And then you get to go against the defending champs who have proved time and time again, doesn't matter if it's Jared Jack at the helm, doesn't matter if James White is your captain, they're going to get the job done, and they're going to run through you, and they're going to make it tough on you. That being said, defending champs are 2-2 on the year, and Trilogy is 0-2 as defending champs and their week 1 matchup. So something maybe to keep an eye out on. I think that'll be a fun matchup. Triplets and Bivouac, they were the week 1 matchup back in 2021, and Triplets is coming off their championship season in 2019. They were actually one of the teams that won coming off the championship, and they beat Bivouac, totally different Bivouac squad now. But that should be a fun one because we get the return of ISO Joe, who took a little bit of a hiatus last year, but he's back. Like, really, really good, not only to see him back in the league, but I think a really good sign for the league moving forward. Power and 3-Headed Monsters is a rematch of last year's crazy but phenomenal semifinal matchup where Glenn Rice Jr. hit a crazy 3 at the end of that game. About to go rewatch that actually right now. That's an all-timer in this league. Aliens Ball Hogs. I told you, a lot of team with intrigue is Aliens. I have a lot of expectations for Ball Hogs this year. Like, I think this is going to be a pretty solid team. I don't know if everyone in the league feels the same. I've heard a couple of people say they're not crazy about Ball Hogs still, or they don't know. I shouldn't say crazy. They don't know if they're a playoff team still to this point. But I think this is a chance for them to solidify themselves and get off to a hot start. And then for Aliens, still a lot of intrigue, but still high expectations. You made the first playoffs last year. Time to build off that. Ghost Ballers and 3's Company. Mike Taylor at the helm. It's crazy to think that Mike Taylor was a 3rd-round pick in 2019. Then was it 2019? 2019. And he came on our show, told us he wanted to be a captain, got to be a co-captain in 2021, been doing his thing, was an all-star last year. And now, and thank you, Ricky Davis, obviously, like a huge contributor and a big staple to the Ghost Baller franchise forever and ever. But to see Mike Taylor now taking over as captain, you bring back a big piece in Darnell Jackson, adding another big piece in Chuck Garcia, and you go against 3's company with Mario Chalmers, Michael Beasley, a team that was really figuring it out last year. And they're adding an NBA veteran and Hollis Thompson to the squad to a team that was already gelling. And if they were that same team all year long, probably would have had a much better record than they actually did. Beasley's not like, I guess, a rookie anymore. Like he's familiar with how the league goes. He's familiar with his teammates. I think Brandon Rush is going to have a much better season. And I'm excited to see this matchup. And then Killer 3's and Tri-State. I mean, 2 gritty teams, 2 teams that are fighting to get back to the playoffs, 2 teams that are looking to prove themselves, I think, a little bit this year, coming off seasons where it's a little bit of a different course to the end, but ultimately finishing at the same stop there. You know, Tri-State with a really hot start, Killer 3's having to kind of work their way back for a 2nd straight year. I think this is crucial for both teams. Killer 3's, I'm sure, wants to get off to a really good start this year and not to play so much catch up and see what, you know, kind of fate holds in store. And then for Tri-State, you know, getting off to a hot start and maintaining that throughout the year and trying to be that number 1 seed again. So some really entertaining games here. Like, I'm excited as hell for all of these matchups. Power and 3-headed monsters is one I'm keeping my eye on. And I think Killer 3's and Tri-State is the other one. Like, I think those are the biggest ones that, like, I'm pretty stoked for, but all the games are going to be good. Like, I'm excited. I should say I'm excited to see all the games. I'm excited to see all the new guys join this league, but I think those are going to be ones that are like highlighted, prioritized a little bit more. I don't even know how I'm going to prioritize it a little bit more at this point, honestly. Like, I'm be locked in like on all of them. Like, I really am. I'm going to be sitting at the table, sitting on the couch, whatever the case may be, updating you guys on what's going on. I'm be locked in. I'm be jumping up and down, hyped up. It's gonna be fun. We're gonna have bring the fires, some new guys in it, some experienced guys taking on some new guys taking on some experienced guys. Like let's see if this is the year offense can get it done more than defense. I don't know. Gonna be crazy. Should be a good time. Those are your week 1 matchups, though. That's what it's gonna look like in Chicago. So. And somebody, if you get to go to Chicago, let me know how it goes. Like, I'd love to have you on the show and talk about your experience, hear what you got to say, hear your opinion and your thoughts on the event as a whole. I find that pretty interesting. I think the rest of us would too, that actually don't get to be there. So anyways, all that being said, that wraps up the first half of this interview. Again, I want to say a big shout out, a big thank you to Believe Network. I also want to say make sure you're following on social media. So make sure you're following at Fourth Man Pod, Instagram, Twitter, and then also to subscribing and hitting that notification bell on the YouTube side of things. You'll get to see all upcoming interviews. Hopefully we get to go to an event this year. I've talked about this for a long time. I really want to do some kind of like day in the life. Day in the life sounds so cliche. I really just want to show like my experience and like anybody's experience from a personal perspective of like going to the Big 3 and just kind of what it entails, you know, like the journey there, the experience, and then, you know, the wrap up. So, you know, if you want to see that, I will make it to a Big 3 game. Let me just put it that way. I will make it to a Big 3 game, but if you want to see that later this year, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you know when that comes out. I don't know which game yet. I'm thinking Miami. I could be wrong. Thinking DC for the playoffs because that's the first time they're going to DC. But all that being said, let me shut up. I appreciate everyone who's tuned into this episode. And let's get into the episode with new edition of Killer 3's, Javier. All right. It's been a minute since we've had a player interview, but today on the show, we're super excited to welcome a longtime overseas professional basketball player and a vet, and also Killer 3's 2nd-round draft pick of this year's 2023 Big 3 Draft, Javier Carter. Again, appreciate you, Javier, for coming on the show, and welcome to the league.
No problem. No, I appreciate you, man. I'm excited, bro. See how this goes, see how the league goes, and have some fun this summer.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So a lot of new faces in the league this year. We saw about 10 new guys get drafted into the league this year, which is super exciting just because we get to see a continued amount of talented players out there, like not only get to play in their, their home country, but also too, just to get to show their, like showcase their skills and really just showcase like other skill sets outside of just NBA basketball. But just so we can kind of get to know each other better, let's start with a little icebreaker here. Uh, would you rather never watch a basketball game again and only be able to play, or only play basketball but never be able to watch another game again?
I'd rather play, bro.
You cool
Yeah,
with not watching for the rest of your life?
I gotta play, man. I gotta play.
Fair enough. I
For
feel like
sure.
that's most people's answer.
Yeah.
Second aspect of this is, how'd you get the name Air? I see Javier Carter on there. I was trying to look through some old interviews, and seems to be your nickname. How'd you get that nickname?
Oh man. I still got bounce, bro. But back in college and finishing up high school, I used to fly, bro. I was probably like a buck 70, a buck 85. And I would just fly, bro. So I got the nickname back then. And I still been catching bodies to the day. So I just kept the moniker Eric Carter. It's just now it's a little more vet. It's a vet game rather than just crazy high flying like it was when I was 18, 19.
Yes, sir. I've been watching some recent highlights of your games in Japan and definitely still seeing you catch some bodies over there. But also, too, who gave you that nickname? And
Oh man, I couldn't tell you. It's been a minute. Probably some homies from high school or you know what I'm saying,
okay.
one of these little programs that you playing during the summer or something. Somebody said it and it just stuck.
Yeah, it's crazy the origin of some nicknames because it's like one person says it and then everybody's like, yeah, that's dope. Like, let me just call him
Yeah,
that too. And then everybody
yeah,
just starts calling you that.
yeah.
You've played a lot of places. You've not only played here in the States and in the D League, the G League, but you've also played in a bunch of different countries. Where's been your favorite country to play in so far?
Oh man. I guess I can say Japan since I've been there the longest. Out of my 10-year career, I've been in Japan for 4. So
Okay.
I guess you can say Japan. Living wise, I really enjoyed Israel. It was nice, man. Just the country itself, living on the water and everything like that. The weather was perfect all year, so like that. I would say.
Okay. Cool. Cool. And just so you know, I'm half Japanese, so I've had the opportunity to go to Japan a little bit. Just saw that you finish up your season in Japan. What would you say is your favorite country or favorite part about playing in Japan, or not even just playing, just being in Japan? And then what would you say is not so much your favorite part of being in Japan?
Oh man, the one thing I can say, starting off just negatively, just the time difference, man. Being that far away from family, sometimes you can't really talk to them how you want to talk to them all the time, and while you're sleeping, they're waking up, and they can't catch all your games. My pops is one of my biggest fans, so he can't catch all the games he wants and stuff like that. And they don't live stream the games. You kind of got to have a app from over in Japan to watch the B League games. But other than that, man, I enjoy it, bro. One of the best things about playing in Japan to me is just seeing the growth of the league. I've been out there since 2019, and you can definitely see like the growth and skill level, the growth in the people that like the players that they're bringing in, the growth in the local players. It's just all getting better and better. So I mean, overall, that's one of the best places I played.
That's cool. Yeah, you see in a lot of these top tier leagues, like a lot of people just starting to really not only the league itself, like continuing to find ways to grow, but also too just a lot more respect that the players have, and now coming over and like really wanting to challenge themselves a little bit more and playing these bigger types of leagues. So that's cool. The
Yeah.
reason I asked that question is I just brought my wife over to Japan for the first time about a month ago. She's not a fan of the food. I was hyping up the food and she was not crazy about it. But
Nah, it depends. It depends on what you like to eat, man. I cook a lot, so
okay,
yeah, I'm Latino and black, so I
okay.
make a lot of like uh Latin foods and Hispanic foods and stuff like that. But I cook a lot, and when I do go out to eat, they got places where you can go out and feel like you're eating at home. But then if you don't like sushi and a lot of rice and stuff like that, you're probably not gonna like it too much.
Yeah, yeah. She always
Yeah,
tells me it's just not her palate. She's big on Mediterranean foods, like Spanish
yeah,
food. She's like big about Spain and like
yeah.
she's a Spanish teacher. So
Flavors and stuff for sure.
Yeah. Not crazy about eating
Yeah,
rice all the time too, which is like a daily at the house, whether it's like lunch or
yeah,
dinner. So I'm sure you understand that. What I thought was
yeah,
cool too is
definitely.
that your wife spends a lot of time or actually travels with you when you play overseas, especially in
Yeah,
Japan. Talk about
yeah,
just like having that support over there because not a lot of
man.
players get
So
that support.
it's dope, man. I spent some time in my career just being overseas by myself, so it's a complete difference. Just make you feel a little more at home. You don't feel as detached from reality. I have my son with me too. He's 8 months, so I was, you know what I'm saying? It was dope to just be there with my family and just be able to enjoy the life that we make for our families, but actually with our families, you know what I'm saying? Because a lot of players
Yeah.
are overseas by themselves. And it makes it tougher to just stay and do your job. But when your family's with you, you can come home and see them, and it kind of feels a little bit more like home, even though you're far away.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. Huge sacrifice too, but really cool to see. Like you said, trying to make a life for them, but also too just for them to like get out of their comfort zone a little bit and go to a whole new country is
Yeah,
pretty insane.
yeah, and
Long
they
story
like coming to
career.
the games. Yeah, they like coming to the games too. So it's dope to see them in the stands, even though we don't really pay attention to the stands much while we playing. We be kind of focused, but it's dope to have them there.
Yeah, your son likes to see you catch bodies now at an early
Yeah,
age.
yeah, yeah. He gets to see it.
For sure. Well, you're a vet. You've been in this game a long time, been in this community for a long time. Uh, Very traveled road, especially to get to this point in the Big Three, where you're now having the opportunity to play in your home country. And well, you said you're Latino and Black, so you're also
Yeah,
Panamanian, but get to
yeah.
play here in the States, where more people get to see, like you said. Hopefully, your dad gets to see you maybe in person this summer. Um, First, let's start with like, how'd you find out about the Big Three opportunity, and is the league something that you've kind of been keeping up with for a little while, or something new to you?
Yeah, I've been keeping up. I got a lot of homies that's been playing in it. One of my ex teammates and friend of mine, Earl Clark, he played for the champions last season.
Mm-hmm.
And we played together in the G League. So he's a super cool dude, down to earth, man. A couple of my homies played. Deshaun, Dominique Johnson. I got a Justin Dimon. I got a bunch of homies who played. Isaiah Austin. So just seeing them play, I got to watch a lot of the games, or most of the games were in Dallas last year, and I'm from Dallas.
Okay.
So yeah, I got to pull up to watch some of the games, and kind of got interested and to see like what the opportunity would be like to play. I train at a gym here, um, where I met Nancy and her son TJ, and we were training and whatnot. So I got to talk to them a little bit about it, get their insight about just the league and stuff like that. So yeah, it's interesting, bro, and I'm ready to see what's up.
Your homies are a bunch of killers in this league right now, so it'd be cool to see you
Yeah,
go
man.
against them.
Yeah,
Or
man.
one of
So
them's
it's
your
a
teammates.
Yeah, it's a small world, bro. That's actually how I got connected with the Killer Threes, through Dominic Johnson. Super cool dude, man, down to earth. We just start talking, and he's like, "Yo, what do you think about playing?" And so he hooked me up with Frank, and we just start talking about it and figured it out.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like, I didn't even know if Dominique would be available for the Killer Threes, but the fact that he is, now you get to play with him. That's a pretty cool
Yeah, that's dope.
opportunity there.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Take me. So you had some conversations with Power, had some conversations with Killer Threes. Take me to draft night. It was a little bit unprecedented in how things went down. There's supposed to be a combine. Combine didn't necessarily come to fruition. But take me to draft night a little bit. What were some of the expectations, and kind of what were you doing on that night, just in the moment?
Listen, man, I've been playing a long time, so I wasn't really nervous. I was just kind of like, whatever happens, it's supposed to happen. That's kind of how I live my life, bro. And when it came to the combine, I had took a last minute gig to go play in South America in Uruguay, with the team that was in the championship, and we ended up winning the championship.
Oh, nice.
So I was supposed to go to the combine. I think it was on the 18th of May or something
Hmm.
like that, and I was gone. So I was like, I may miss the combine. But then I see they changed it, and then they changed it again, and then they ended up canceling it. So it ended up helping me in my favor by not having to show up because I was gone overseas. But then by the time we won the championship, I was able to come home on the second. So the day that the draft was, I literally flew home that morning, and was able to watch it with my family. So that was dope.
Oh, cool. So did you actually
Yeah.
like wait a day to figure out the results, or did somebody actually or I guess they probably
No.
called you and let you know
Yeah,
that you
yeah,
were
yeah.
already on the
They let
team,
me
but
know. Yeah, they let me know.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Man, that's a cool experience. It wasn't your first time being drafted. You got drafted back in the 2015 D League draft, the Bakersfield Jam. how does this time of being drafted compare to that time of being drafted? Because at that time, it was kind of like the start of your career, whereas now you're like, you're really ingrained into the sport of basketball. You're a vet at this point.
Yeah, so I graduated college in 2013, so that was I was still a little wet behind the ears, man. I was trying to figure it out, trying to understand like this basketball life and figure it all out, man. So now I'm a little more established in my confidence. You know what I'm saying? So however the draft would have went, I would have been fine. I'm grateful that I got chosen, and I know what I can provide to a team. So I knew the minute I got drafted, I was like, okay, it's time to work. But before in the G League, I was just nervous, bro. I didn't know what it all entailed, bro. So um I'm in a completely different mindset than I was back then. But it's all a blessing, bro.
For sure. You're entering your first year in the Big Three. I know that you said you're from Dallas. You're playing in a few different places this year, getting to go back on tour. So you're going to get to play in a number of places. Anywhere that you're excited to play in this first year?
Definitely Dallas. I used to go to the American Airlines Center all the time, watch the Mavericks and Dirk and Michael Finley and
Mm-hmm.
Cedric Ceballos. Like I'm aging myself a little bit, but I used to watch all that. We of course we weren't at the games because you know what I'm saying we didn't have money like that to go to all the
Mm-hmm.
Mavericks games, but just watching them on TV and knowing the American Airlines Center and stuff like that, I'm super excited to play there. And then I just saw that they put it in the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. I've never
Man,
been there. I've been to the Garden before, but I've never been to the Barclays, so it's gonna be dope. Um, yeah, I just you know what I'm saying got a couple places where I got homies and friends and stuff like that. My national teammate Akil Mitchell got picked up by the Power.
yeah,
So I get to play with him or against him. And I know he's from Carolina, so it'll be dope to be able to, you know what I'm saying, play
yeah.
him in his hometown and whatnot. So
For sure. Yeah,
yeah.
and I'm not sure if you're a big fan of the UK, if you've played in the UK before, but it'd be cool to play there this year because they're playing the
No,
championship. So,
for sure. Listen, I hope we can make it, man. I feel like our team is locked in from what I've talked to from the guys I've talked to so far and whatnot. I feel like we're locked in. So hopefully we do make it to that point because that'd be super dope.
yeah, and what I can say is too, just from an outside perspective, and getting to interview a few of these guys that are your teammates now, is that Killer Threes has really established his culture in the Big Three, unlike any other team. Especially I
Yeah.
think it started with Stack when he was a captain there, but then when he brought in Frank and Frank took the reins, they've really established like this bond, this brotherhood, and this culture. What are some of the early indications or like the early understandings that you've kind of understood about this culture, and how do you feel like you're going to fit into this Killer Threes mentality?
Man, no pun intended. We got some killers, bro. It's I feel like I just saw Frank and Dom went crazy in the Drew
Mm-hmm.
this past weekend, and here in Dallas we got a program called Swin City,
Mm-hmm.
and we just started up too, and we play next Wednesday. So it's you know what I'm saying it's all revving up, getting ready to go, and I feel like everybody's locked in and ready to play hard, man.
Yeah, no doubt. For fans maybe not familiar with your game, what can fans expect from you this year? Can you describe the type of player you are outside of just catching bodies, but what do you bring to the table every game?
Oh man,
Or how would you describe it in your eyes?
I'm efficient, bro.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very efficient with the way I play, with the way I think the game. I'm a veteran, not just in my game, but in my mentality. I know Oakley's probably gonna be tough on us, but you know what I'm saying I'm from a tough place, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm used to that, and I'm just ready to work out. I know a lot of people won't, a lot of fans, I would say, won't know my game, but I'm almost positive that a lot of players in the Big Three know who I am, or they've played against me or heard about me. So if not, they will. And that's just how I feel.
I like that. I like that. And two, just thinking about the 3-on-3 game, obviously 3-on-3 is what every Hooper probably plays growing up, like in their backyard or whatever the case may be. But do you feel like there's like any early adjustments? Do you feel like this 3-on-3 style fits your game just a little bit better? I mean, what's kind of the mindset or even the strategic play that you have going into your first game?
Oh man, I'm just gonna play my game, man. The first game we play against um Justin Dittman's team, correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I know that all of those players or the players on that team that I know, they know me. So they know my playing style. Deshaun is on that team now too, so they know my playing style. So I'm gonna just be myself, man. Be aggressive, play hard defense like I always do, and just uh, hopefully we mesh well in the first game and it starts off on a high note.
Yeah, I think it's kind of good too. Like Deshaun, obviously was a BIG3 All-Star last year. He made his presence felt. Justin and has made his presence felt in this league since he's come on as an undrafted player. Obviously, they're captained by Jay Rich over there. So there's a lot of expectations on Tri-State's end, being a #1 team a couple of years ago, not making the playoffs last year, and now for you just to be able to come in and obviously kill with 3's, they have a long history as well of being successful, making it to the championship game. But for you, being the only new guy on the team, I mean, might be a little bit of relief coming into a league where it's like they know you, but they don't, maybe like not only fans, but maybe everybody in the league might not know really what to expect within your first game. I mean, is there any sense of relief just coming in, kind of being the new guy?
It's never relief, bro. I always got a chip on my
Mm-hmm.
shoulder just because I feel
I
like
feel that.
I've always been the underdog. In a lot of cases, I went Division 1, but it wasn't like super high major, and I did my thing. Left my mark on the record books and everything like that. So, I've always had to build my own brand and build my name. So this is just another challenge where I got to build it up again, and almost positive by the end of this season, everybody will know who I am.
I like that. I like that. You mentioned Coach Oak. The craziest thing about this league, and I think it's really underrated factor, is that you're getting to learn and be coached by and guided by Hall of Famers, historic names in basketball. Your coach is going to be Charles Oakley, like you mentioned. What are your thoughts of just like being coached by Charles Oakley, even not just as a player, but even maybe as a fan, like growing up in the game of
Yeah,
basketball?
bro. That's big time. I didn't start playing basketball until later, like at a high level and on teams and whatnot, and didn't take it really serious. But I watched basketball my whole life. My pops used to play, um, and so I know all of the coaches. I know all of their names and all of their games. I watch more film than anybody I know. So it's super dope to be able to be coached by these guys or play against these guys. I was able to play against Isaiah Thomas in college, and that also was like something that was super dope. He was at Florida International, I think, at the time.
Okay.
So it's just something that is just something that I think is a blessing, bro. And I just never take it for granted, and I'm just gonna just work out and prove that I should be playing in front of these guys because
For sure.
they've made their marks already.
Yeah, yeah. It's pretty crazy, honestly. I feel like there's a lot to learn from these people, and I feel like that's a super underrated aspect of being drafted. I mean, to put it in perspective, and I don't think enough people put this in perspective. Maybe you have, but just to give you another perspective, like only 20 people selected in this draft every year. A lot of them are vets. A lot of them are, maybe they know somebody, but 20 people are selected within this draft every year. You're one of, you're 1/5 of the draft pool that's drafted. So pretty insane that you get to join this league now, and your first game of the year, like you mentioned, is going to be against Tri-State. I know you've had some early conversations with some of your teammates, but I know everyone's still busy kind of ramping up for the season. Have you been watching maybe any old footage of Tri-State, and is there anything that's maybe, if so, is there anything that stood out as maybe a point of emphasis that you want to personally take advantage of, or even try to defend and stop?
Oh yeah, man. I'm just watching film about spacing,
Mm-hmm.
how guys are attacking the 3-on-3 because not 5-on-5 is completely different with the spacing. So just how guys are attacking it. I watched Dewan Summers, his highlights last year and how he was playing. He did great. He lives here in Dallas as well, so
Mm-hmm.
I got to see him training and talk to him a little bit last year. And just seeing how he went about it, it was a good season for him. Initially, how he started, um, but just watching film I watched the finals last year, uh, between Power and Trilogy, and just watching how they attacked and spacing and just how everything moved.
I like that. Yeah, it's going to be. I don't know. I don't feel like it'll be too much of a shock for guys that are veterans and played professionally. But too, yeah, just kind of getting adjusted a little bit in those first few instances
Yeah.
will be major for sure. Um, as you kind of going into this first year, what are you most excited about, like from a non-basketball perspective? Like obviously, like you guys are taking a lot of. I don't want to say you're taking a lot, but I'm saying like most guys like relax in the summer, especially playing overseas. It's a lot of traveling, not just to get overseas, but while you're playing overseas, you might go to different countries and whatnot. What are you looking forward to most about this summer, just from a non-basketball perspective?
Oh man. Good question. First, this is my first time since I played in the G League playing in the US.
Mhm.
Of course I played Drew League a couple times with a team called Notion X, and I think they're now Task Force. I played pro-ams here in Dallas. I played pro-ams around like Houston and different cities. So I've been around playing summer ball in the States, but like actually playing in a actual league here, a respected league, and my family being able to come, my pops being able to come watch however many games he wants and stuff like that is something super dope to me. Being able to travel to some of these cities I haven't been in a while, just because like you said, being overseas, when I come home, I'm ready to be at home and just chill with my family and relax a little bit. But yeah, being able to just travel around and then being able to come back and see my son, see my family, see my wife, and just relax.
No doubt. Yeah, I think that's the coolest aspect too, is just getting to play in front of your family. Like, especially like I feel like a lot of guys who join this league or their first time playing, like they are new dads, or they just had their first child, and not a lot of get to see like their early playing days. So then for them to be able to kind of see you in your prime as a veteran is like a really key, like, cool aspect about the Big Three, and I think it brings a lot to the table from that front too. Two more questions. One, how does it feel that your boss is Ice Cube?
Nah, that's dope, man. So my family and my wife's family, they're like my parents and whatnot. They're around the same age as Ice Cube, so uh, them seeing him call my name on the night of the draft was super dope, and they always like mention it to me, like, "Yo, Ice Cube said your name," like this and that, and make little jokes like, "Oh, you gonna be in the next Friday," like stuff like that. But nah, it's dope, man. Of course, everybody looked up to Ice Cube. I was born in '91, bro, so
Oh
man, he
yeah,
was hot. He was super
yeah,
hot, and my whole childhood and everything. So nah, it's dope, man. It's just another part of my life that I could be like, thank God that I got to experience this situation, man. Because you know what I'm saying, people never get to experience certain stuff. Even when it comes to like traveling and all the stuff that I've been able to experience, thank God, bro. I'm just grateful, man.
facts. Is there a favorite Friday movie that you have, or maybe like that's like a family household staple?
Oh man, the original is definitely this is Friday, bro. It's
Thank
on
you,
TV all the time,
thank
but
you. Yeah,
Friday After Next it might be the funniest, bro. To me, it might be the funniest. But the original Friday is a classic. But Friday After Next might be the funniest one.
I think you're right about that one. I don't know, something about that first one always hits like
Yeah,
just
yeah,
differently a little bit, just being the
definitely.
first one, getting introduced to the
Yeah.
characters. But I feel you, the second one might be the funniest. It's a good
No, no,
sequel
no.
for sure.
The third
Or
one
the
is funny.
third one.
Yeah,
That's right, because it's
yeah, yeah,
yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Last question I wanted to ask is anyone that you're excited to go against or even guard on a one-on-one scenario? A lot of ISO ball, obviously, in this league, depending on style of play. A lot of teams go to that at certain points in the shot clock being a little bit shorter. Anybody you're excited to go against or defend in this league?
Uh, Not really. I
Mhm.
just everybody's. I feel like it's an even playing field, man. Um, I'm the kind of guy I don't care about the name. It's you got to bring your game. So um, it really doesn't matter, man. We all in the same playing field now. It doesn't matter where guys went to school. It don't matter how many years guys played in the league. This and that. If we suiting up against each other right now, we suiting up. So may the best man win. We got to do what we got to do and play. And then
Yeah.
afterwards we can chop it up and be cool.
Yeah. That's what the league's
Yeah,
about. I know I said
yeah.
last question, or I might have said last question, but one more thing to ask. This is probably, just from my perspective, the most even playing field that I've seen in the league's history. What are your thoughts, just like early thoughts from a high level overview about the rosters and how you see this league or this year playing out?
Oh man, I've seen just in this draft alone, I saw a lot of names that I know or that I've played against. So I mean, it's exciting. I feel like everybody's gonna bring it just because everybody's gonna know somebody who they're playing against or playing with. So guys are gonna compete, and it's pride on the line, it's money on the line, and dudes really wanna compete and wanna win. So I feel like there's a lot of guys who are gonna give their all, and hopefully everybody does. But it's gonna make for a super entertaining season, bro, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah. I agree. Well, Javier, good luck on your first game, June 25th. Appreciate your time and coming on, and best of luck in your first year as a rookie. Once again, a rookie once again in the Big Three. Appreciate the time.
For sure, I appreciate you, man.
Yes, sir. All right, that was our interview with Killer 3's new addition, Javier Carter. Just want to say a big thank you to Javier once again. It was really cool just to meet you, get to know you, and understand, what you're excited about for this Big 3 season and what you're going to bring to the table. I'm sure a lot of fans were interested. Like I said, there's a ton of new additions to the league, but I don't think these are. I guess like I should say that like I don't think there's as many prominent names or like well-known names in terms of guys that were drafted, maybe in comparison to prior years. So, yeah, I think this is cool. Appreciate it a lot, Javier. I'm rooting for you, rooting for Killer 3's as always. You get to fit that. I think you fit that Killer 3's culture very well and just like grit and about action. So excited to see what Killer 3's does and that highly anticipated game against Tri-State. Again, thank you to you all who continue to listen, who are following on social media. If you're new to the show, welcome to the show, and thanks for joining in. I'll definitely have more of these podcasts out as the season's actually going on. This is going to be more of a weekly thing, but just to give you some transparency throughout the longest off season and sports. I kind of do these things like once a month, but as the season goes on, these things start gearing up. Hopefully we get some more player interviews, get to meet some of the more new guys in the league, and maybe get some old vets on that we haven't had on in a while, some recurring guests. But other than that, make sure you're following again on Twitter, on Instagram. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Big shout out to Believe, and we'll see you guys the next time.